Our schools and country as a whole will be much safer when lawmakers decide that anyone and anything can be vulnerable to the threat of gun violence. Students, educators, and staff have experienced a multitude of distress and lasting trauma as a result of active shooter drills. It is time to take action to ensure we see a day where headlines after headlines do not show reports of another life lost as a result of the lax gun control in the U.S. The Columbine High School shooting of 1999 claimed 15 lives. The shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary in Connecticut that took 27 lives in 2012. The Las Vegas shooting of 58 people in October of 2018. The Sutherland Springs, Texas shooting that claimed 26 lives in October of 2018. The Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando, Florida that left 49 dead in 2016. And the Uvalde shooting that left 19 children and 2 adults dead on May 24th. The list goes on. However, the list does not have to go on. We must take preventative measures to ensure that more individuals do not make this list. As a student, I asked Congress to enact federal legislation that aims to limit access to semi-automatic weapons, prohibit the sales of guns to domestic abusers and those with high-risk mental illnesses, and high-capacity magazines in order to prevent these horrors. Across the nation, people like you and me can make a difference by voting in politicians who believe in legislative change regarding gun control. There are enough thoughts and prayers. We need change. We need real change. By advocating for universal background checks on semi-automatic weapons, establishing red flag laws, I believe that we, as a people and as a nation, can genuinely make a change. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our students for speaking today. We would just like to remind you, if you have a water bottle, you can throw away in the trash bags tied to the trash cans, and that you can register to vote with the League of Women Voters. You can find the League of Women Voters booth down the Great Walk in the middle in the back with the white tent. I would also like to thank, we have some policymakers here today. I would like to thank them for coming and supporting this movement. We now have our first teacher speaking, Miss Amy Jaggers. Amy's a social studies teacher in the Austin area and has been teaching for over 20 years.
Good morning. I've worked in AISD since 1997, either as a classroom teacher or a parent volunteer in my community. My current role for the last 7 years has been as a classroom teacher at a local high school here in Austin. When I participated in my first active shooter drill, it was after Columbine at a local middle school here in town. I had no idea at the time how that would affect my classroom dynamic and the long-range implications it would have on teachers. Today, active shooter drills are the norm. We're required to participate in at least one a semester. And Governor Abbott is even calling for more active shooter trainings for schools. But as we saw in Uvalde, things can happen so fast that all the training can become obsolete in an instant. When I was approached to speak today, I was asked to reflect on how gun violence has impacted my role in the classroom. And as I started to consider this question, I realized for myself there's a level of denial. I don't want to believe that gun violence could affect my classroom, because how could I continue to do my job effectively knowing that gun violence could happen at any moment? But as we are seeing year to year, gun violence is a very real threat that all teachers have to consider. We live in a state that protects the rights of gun owners over my safety and that of my students. People are already saying things like, schools need more safety or arm the teachers. And in my opinion, the answer to gun violence isn't about creating schools in the scary places where students are frightened to enter. I didn't become a teacher knowing that one day I would have to carry a gun or potentially shoot one of my own students. Every student that walks into my classroom, I try and forge a relationship with that student. And in no way could I ever raise a hand to harm them. Hopefully, our congressional leaders in Washington and here in Texas will see that now is the time for action. At what point do we say, now is the time to protect children and our teachers? But I fear that nothing will happen, and I'll start a new school year in August with the same thoughts I have every year, teaching high school. How will I protect these students if something happens? What's going to be the best course of action if a shooter enters my classroom? Which students will even fit through my 2-foot wide window on the second floor building where I work if we need to leave in an emergency? Or which students am I going to have to be concerned might want to harm other students or themselves? How many more years will teachers have to ask themselves these questions before there is a change? How many more lives will have to be lost? Now is the time for change. Now is when we must demand our leaders to make change. Because otherwise, it's just going to keep getting worse. I wanted to end today with this post that really resonated with me, that I saw continually shared on social media after the Uvalde shootings, because I feel like it encapsulates the feelings all teachers across the country are feeling right now. The author was Angela Dominique Terrell, a former high school teacher in Louisiana. Every teacher you know has thought about it. Every teacher you know has a plan for an active shooter. Every teacher you know has weighed their point of fight or flight. Every teacher you know has walked into their room looking for blind spots. Every teacher you know has passed their classroom to see what it would look like from the outside. Every teacher you know has wondered how fast they can lock their classroom door. Every teacher you know has had a talk about the spread out or group together methods. Every teacher you know has gotten jumpy at least once at the sound of a fire alarm, unplanned announcement, or a screech from the quad. Every teacher you know has wondered if they could be in the way long enough to prevent damage. Every teacher you know has thought about how hard it would be to keep young people quiet. Every teacher you know has walked into a different classroom and noticed where the doors and windows are. Every teacher you know thinks it can happen, so they hope every day it doesn't. Every teacher you know. Thank you for listening today.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jaggers. Our next speaker is teacher Chrissy Haney. Born in Austin and raised in the Hill Country, Chrissy is an 11th grade English teacher in Austin ISD, mother to 2 children who attend AISD schools, and a member of Education Austin. This fall, she will begin her 15th year as a classroom teacher and her 10th year in Austin ISD. She earned a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from St. Edward's University in 2004 and a Master of Science in Education from Baylor University in 2008.
Two months from now, I will return to campus to set up my classroom for a new school year. Just like the 14 Augusts before this one, I will have to arrange my furniture with the safety of myself and my students in mind. My desk has to be a subtle fortress for 30 11th graders to take refuge in the event of a shooting. My door must remain locked with a strike plate magnet in place. I have a bookshelf that's ready to slide into position in front of the door in case a gunman is able to get through the locked door. Not unlike a flight attendant, I will briefly explain all these safety features to my students on the first day of school. I will ask for volunteers willing to help shut down the classroom in the case of an emergency. Over the course of the year, we will be expected to interrupt our school day to conduct lockdown drills to show the children what it will feel like to be hunted by a gunman intent on murdering them. When the announcement is made, we'll spring into action. Everyone will silently move behind the barricade while I remove the magnet from the strike plate. Jake turns off the Jumbotron. Whitney slides the bookshelf in front of the door, and Bree turns off the lights. We will not make a sound or answer the door under any circumstances. Then, when yet another unfathomable act of gun violence occurs, my colleagues and I will process with our students in the days that follow. When a book drops or a balloon pops out in our cavernous hallway, a fleeting, palpable wave of panic will spread across the room. They'll watch me carefully as I calmly, subtly remove the magnet from the strike plate without stopping my lecture on the rhetorical choices of James Baldwin. And the whole process will repeat as it has for years. Despite what Governor Abbott and the gun lobby want you to believe, that isn't freedom, y'all. These drills are neither age-appropriate nor trauma-informed, and data shows that they're detrimental to the mental and behavioral well-being of children and teachers. Last Saturday, at an Education Austin Town Hall meeting, I heard an elementary teacher express concern that the automatic toilet flushes repeatedly when her students are hiding in the bathroom during drills. Really? What messages are we sending our children? The same Texas lawmakers who bemoaned taking simple precautions to stop a deadly virus are perfectly content to project their fear of some invisible boogeyman onto young children. They used SB 3 to censor teachers and stop the teaching of historical facts, while simultaneously expanding gun rights. They would deny women access to reproductive health care under the guise of protecting life, while making it easier for men in crisis to access weapons designed to kill living human beings. Thanks for coming. Every time a mass shooting occurs, Texas lawmakers bring out all the tired old straw man talking points in the attempt to shift the focus off the real problem. The one that gets my biggest eye roll is probably Senator Ted Cruz's favorite straw man, school security. Vote him out, yes. First of all, if they really wanted better school security, they would adequately fund public schools. But they don't, and they won't. Moreover, if non-educators want to suggest beefing up security in schools, they'd better have some hard data proving the effectiveness of more officers stationed at campuses. As of now, that's not the case. We know how the officers in Parkland and Uvalde handled their emergencies. I don't say that to disparage those officers. Nevertheless, the fact remains that the data doesn't support more security as a solution or even a deterrent. Secondly, police officers, who are highly trained in the use of firearms, are only able to hit a moving target about 30% of the time. Perhaps that's why multiple Texas police organizations have consistently opposed weakening gun laws in Texas, session after session. Texas lawmakers love to talk about Back the Badge and Blue Lives Matter, yet law enforcement officials are ignored when they express a professional opinion that conflicts with the gun lobby. Last session, when speaking in opposition to legislation that would allow permitless carry in Texas, a representative from the Houston Police Officers Union said, and I quote, "We're just concerned because anytime there's more guns, there's a problem." He's right. Data shows that states with weaker gun laws have higher rates of gun violence, which should come as a surprise to no one. Turning our schools into prisons isn't the answer, y'all. Speaking of police, I want to give a quick shout out to the Capitol Police. I can only speak from my own experience, but I've been to 1,000 rallies on these grounds and the streets surrounding them, and these officers are the standard. Thank you for all you do, Capitol Police. So here's my call to action. To the current leadership of Texas, it's time for you to step aside. You had your chance to lead Texas into the future, and you've blown it time and again. Governor Abbott, you and your ilk have botched and mismanaged crisis after deadly crisis in this state, including, but certainly not limited to, a historic snowstorm and multiple mass shootings, resulting in hundreds of preventable deaths of innocent Texans. When y'all had the opportunity to effect real change, you invariably doubled down in the opposite direction. Y'all consistently ignore the professionals, teachers, obstetricians, mental and behavioral health specialists, and law enforcement officials to push your own dangerous, irresponsible agendas. Your actions have harmed everyone and helped no one. Stand down. To the mental and behavioral health experts, law enforcement officials, and my fellow educators, it's time for us, the professionals, to combine forces, draft legislation, and make real change happen. We need to be proactive in addressing the root causes of gun violence. Our culture of toxic masculinity, our reactionary and reactive response to people in crisis, and the demonstrably false notion that mental illness is the culprit have got to go. We need to foster a culture of connection and empathy. We need to implement proactive, trauma-informed responses to people in crisis, and we need to make obtaining firearms more difficult than voting and accessing reproductive health care. To my fellow Americans and Texans, you have inherited a sacred right and duty that is more powerful than any weapon, and that is your vote. Next spring, the Texas legislature will have yet another opportunity to take action that has proven to decrease gun violence. Register to vote, get to the polls in November, and use your power to assign some real leaders to govern this state and this nation. To my daughters and my students, keep asking the hard questions, keep demanding accountability from your grown-ups, and keep moving forward. Look at the facts and make your own conclusions. If you need me, I'll be near. Thank y'all.
Thank you so much to our teachers.
We would now like to welcome Jasmine, who lost a loved one in the Uvalde tragedy.
Good morning, everyone. As I said, I'm Jasmine Casares, and I lost my little sister, Jacqueline, at the Robb Elementary shooting, and I also lost my little cousin, Annabelle. I didn't prepare anything. I wasn't supposed to speak today, but of course I am. On the morning of the 24th, I usually run into my sister in the restroom. We usually bump into each other brushing our teeth. But I woke up a little late that day, so I didn't see her. I forgot to say good morning. And I think that's gonna haunt me for the rest of my life. Then later at school, I got a call that there was a shooter on her campus. But I also heard allegedly there was one at mine too. So while I was fearing for my own life, I didn't know that my sister had lost hers. I am unbelievably angry, but I'm not going to turn my anger into hate. I'm going to channel that anger, and I'm going to create some real change. That 18-year-old guy, you will never catch me saying his name. He doesn't deserve to be remembered. Jackie does. I went to school with him. I walked past him in the halls, probably waved to him a couple times. And he took her from me. He took her friends, my cousins. That weekend, we were gonna practice for auditions for our Summer Fine Arts Academy. She wanted to be Chip in Beauty and the Beast, and of course I wanted to be Belle. We were gonna prepare that weekend, and I never got to have that weekend with her. I have no way to express how I feel, the hurt I feel, and the hurt everybody in Uvalde feels. 19 kids, 19 families, not just me. I'm doing this for you, sister. If you can see me, I'm doing this for you. You will be remembered. I promise you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Javier Castro. Jacqueline is my daughter. First, I want to say, these ladies back here, you guys are awesome. I appreciate all you're here doing and help and speaking out the truth. The day after the shooting, we had a press conference with Governor Abbott. He said that he gave $500 million to school safety. When you divide that by 9,000, 10,000 schools in Texas, they're only getting like 55,000 a campus or district. Is that enough? Hell no. Not even close. Another thing he said, they haven't had to change these gun laws in the past 60 years because there hasn't really been a reason to. Are you freaking kidding me? That was the his words. You might have seen it on the press conference, maybe not, but that's what he said. And that's BS. Enough is enough. And like my daughter said, we're here to represent my daughter and her friends. The two teachers passed away. I promised my daughter, in the hospital, that we were going to fight, and we're going to keep on fighting until something is done. Again, enough is enough. Thank you guys.
Thank you all. And now we would like to introduce our next speaker, Noelita Lugo, who is an at-large trustee on the Austin Independent School District Board.
Oh my gosh. So I didn't write anything, but there are some things that I hope to leave with you. Before I start with my talk, I want to thank the young people who put this together. I want to thank the family for being here and for speaking their truth and for speaking to power. You know, a lot of times when I'm in board meetings at the school district or other settings, I hear people say, oh, the youth, you know, the youth are our future. I can't wait for them to, you know, really come into power. But why is it that we're so quick to release ourselves from that ownership of solving problems? Why do we constantly want to put it onto young people to solve the problems that we have a responsibility to solve? So a couple of things I want to share with y'all. One, every day gun violence takes a life, takes multiple lives all over the country, all over the world. Growing up so I'm originally from Houston. Growing up in Houston, in my family, we had family violence. And my dad owned a gun. And I never really knew whether or not, when he would get angry, whether this was going to be one of those moments when he would pull it out, what would happen. There's no reason that over that same course of time, I'm going to be 45 in July, so over those last 40 plus years, there's no reason why gun laws in Texas should have been relaxed. There's no reason why assault rifles should be easier for young people to obtain than it is for them to register to vote, to buy alcohol, or to do any other thing like that. So when I think about gun safety, when I think about responsible gun ownership, I also think about my dad. I think about the lives that are lost every day from accidental shootings, toddlers getting a hold of guns from their mom's purse, kids getting a hold of guns inside their home and accidentally shooting a sibling. These are the things that we don't often hear about but happen every single day. So, what's the call to action? We already know we need to vote the hell out of these people. We need them off of their seats. They are not leaders. They are more concerned with following the dollars than doing the right thing. The other call to action, and this may seem a little obscure, but the other call to action is, I promise you, every school district, every school board, I beg you to pay attention to who sits on your school board. Our positions are elected, but they're volunteer, which often means that it's the most privileged of us who get to run. I have the privilege and the honor to have the weight of the responsibility to be one of 9 school board members here in Austin, and in fact, one of 2 of the at-large school board trustees. So you may be thinking, what does that have to do with gun safety? A lot, because it's the school boards that set the vision and the strategic plan for the school district. It's the board that passes budgets. And yes, do we not have enough funds in our school district? Absolutely. Is that by design? Hell yeah. The leaders inside the Capitol don't want us to have enough funds. They'd rather promote vouchers and other profit-making alternatives. So what does the school district and the school board have to do with gun safety? We have an obligation to get information out to families. And there are districts, including our own, who are doing just that in partnership with community organizations, getting gun locks out to families, getting gun safety out to families, gun safety information out to families, I mean. But the other piece is, are we going to have school boards that agree that we should harden schools? Are we going to have school boards that agree that we should arm teachers with guns rather than support and services and books and supplies? Do we want school boards that will do the bidding of this twisted ass leadership that's been in power for decades? Or do we want school boards who are willing to do the right thing and push back? Do we want school boards that will invest in mental health services for students, for parents, for teachers? So I beg you, please, if you're in Austin, tune in to what's happening on the school board and in your school district and at your campus level. If you're not from Austin, please go back and find out who's your trustee, what do they do? go and find out and then grill the hell out of the candidates that are going to be asking for your vote this November, because we cannot afford to continue to vote people in who care nothing about children's lives and care more about the cash in their pockets. Thank you.
I know this may sound redundant. We would like to remind everyone, please visit the League of Women Voters booth down the Great Walk. No one should leave here not registered to vote.
There's also water bottles if you are hot, and medics if you feel that you need one.
Gun violence prevention is obviously a daunting task to take on in the United States. It is something that must involve not only students, but organizers and community members. Organizers encourage students and young people to step into their power and let their voice be heard, as well as continuously fight to end systems of oppression that contribute to gun violence. They conquer the unbearable every day, continuously working to make the Austin community and world a better place. We will now hear from some experienced organizers Shayna and I have gotten the utmost privilege and honor of working with.
Starting with Kim Gutierrez, the Senior Manager of Organizing and Partnerships for the Community Justice Action Fund. She is a first-generation Chicana bilingual community organizer who believes in the power of relationship building to catalyze grassroots movements. Throughout her career, she has worked to strengthen the leadership of Black and Latinx parents in Washington, D.C., and build a more equitable education system.
Hola mi gente, hi everyone. As they shared, my name is Kim Gutierrez and I'm part of the Community Justice Action Fund. And I come to you first as an organizer. As an organizer, I'm telling you, keep your ear to the ground. A lot of what we haven't heard, of course we are for common sense gun reform, but community violence intervention programs are at our disposal, in our city, alive and well and kept and funded by the Austin Office of Violence Prevention. Make sure that they are funded. They will help folks on the ground intervene and prevent violent acts from happening. I come to you next as a sister, as a Latina, as someone that grew up in a city that looks just like this one. My sister graduated high school this week. She graduated high school, and before she did so, attended her first funeral. Her first love was shot and killed. One of those wrong place, wrong time. Jojo Lopez wasn't able to be at high school. He was robbed of a childhood. Just like so many tragic mass shootings that we see here in Texas and nationwide. To that I say, Santa Fe, no more silence. El Paso, no more silence. Odessa, no more silence. Buffalo, no more silence. Uvalde, no more silence. We need to act. We need to vote. We need to fund community violence intervention programs. We know this gun violence crisis affects us every day and more touches all of our lives, especially our children. I'm heartbroken. I'm angry, just like so many of you. And I'm grateful that all of you have shown up to meet the moment. We've encouraged you to vote. Tell your loved ones to vote. Make our voices heard. No more children. No more silence. No more children. No more silence. Thank you for being outraged. Continue to do so. The community of Uvalde needs you to stay active, stay loud, stay angry. We cannot have one more of these on our hands and on their hands. Thank you. And as the community of Uvalde says, and so proudly wears on their shirts, wear and keep Uvalde strong.
Our next speaker is Nicole Golden, the Executive Director of Texas Gun Sense.
Hi. You guys first, we need to give a shout out to the students who in their last week of school witnessed the unspeakable shooting of 19 young children and 2 educators, and have from immediately into the first weeks of their summer vacation sprang into action to bring us here today in their grief and in their anger. It's a heavy lift, and my deepest care for the family from Uvalde who opened their broken hearts to us today. We will keep fighting in honor of your loved ones. I lead Texas Gun Sense, the only statewide gun violence prevention nonprofit organization founded here in Texas. We fight for and with you in this building every single day. It is an uphill climb. It forces you to redefine what success looks like and to keep chipping away in the face of unacceptable failures of leadership. But we will never stop. I said to a friend earlier that I have this sense that our world, it feels so dark. I know I'm not alone in that feeling, and that there's like this other, better, safer world. We just need to find the key to enter. It keeps me up at night. But that key, folks, is you. The key is you. Together, we can create a future free from gun violence. So whatever you do keep coming back. Do not give in to despair. I know it's hard right now. The antidote to despair is action. Thank you.
Now we'll hear from our last speaker. That's for last, right? Chaz is an acclaimed activist and community organizer who has dedicated his life to helping Black, Indigenous, and people of color, impoverished communities, and those that suffer the brunt of systemic institutional oppressions. Chaz Moore leads the Austin Justice Coalition as well.
Good morning. Y'all can say it back. I'm gonna ask you to do a couple things. I'm gonna say some things, and then we're all gonna go home. The first thing I'm gonna ask you to do, if you don't mind, is to step out of the shade and come into the sun, because we're talking about change that's gonna cause us to get a little bit uncomfortable. So I'm gonna ask you to come up with us. Keep coming as far as you can. Because I think that's part of the problem, right? We say we want change, we say we want things to be different, but we still sit in these little comfort zones that don't really push us to the limits that we need to go. And also, just to close the gap, just because we're up here speaking doesn't make us any more different than anybody that's out here. Like, we're all community, we're all in this together. Yes, we're here today to present some ideas and talk about some things, but we're all in this fight together. So we really have to break up this idea that the people up there or the people that sit in this building are any different than any one of us. This is also part of the problem. First thing I want to do is I want to give a huge shout out to these young folks that put this together. Thank you! I see Dylan, I see some other young folks in the crowd that have been organizing, which is kind of crazy because I'm 34, people 34 and up. A lot of us, when we were growing up around this age, we were at home Saturday mornings watching cartoons, eating cereal. It's kind of ridiculous that these kids have to come out and fight for their lives. Second thing I want to do is I want to give I don't know if shout out is the right term, but I want to send my condolences and thoughts to the families of the victims in Uvalde that are here today, because that's why we're here today. Now I'm going to say some couple things that may not be as uplifting as a lot of these other folks, but I've been doing this quite some time, and I know how this kind of goes, right? A lot of you also thank these organizers for putting this together because you got the rally selfie that you came for, right? You got the selfie at the rally to say you actually did something, when in actuality you haven't done anything. So shout out to those of you that actually get going home today at about 11:30 or noon, and you came to the rally. You're gonna pat yourself on the back, and that's okay. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the photo op for these children. That's also okay. But I also want to talk about us for a moment. Yes, we can be mad at these folks in this building, whether they're Democrat or Republican. I would argue that they're both crazy. I would argue that we need to get rid of the two-party system anyway. But that's not why we're here today. We're here to talk about responsibilities and accountability for why this keeps happening. I want to lift up some thoughts. The first thought is, yes, it's our lawmakers' fault, but it's not just their fault, it's our fault too, because every time something happens, we, the people, say we're going to do something, and then we get excited for a moment, and then come around September, October, November, we fall back into a lull. So when I was on Instagram and social media calling out we the people, me included in that, people say, how dare you blame the working class? Well, it is our fault. Because we are the people that empower these people to come in here and do whatever they do anyway. So as mad as I am at Ted Cruz and Lieutenant Dan, whatever his name is, and Governor Abbott, like I'm upset at my brothers and sisters in the West Austin, and even in West and South Austin that are not voting. And yes, there are laws having that are trying to prevent people to vote, but we have to do the work to encourage people to register to vote and only to show up in November. So I hear a lot of you say, Greg Abbott has got to go. But if you say that here today, on June 11th, but you don't show up in November, then don't come talk to me after the rally. See, the problem is we get moved by these tragedies and these crazy events, but then it's so common in this country that we just lull right back to sleep. That's why we stopped talking about the black folks that were shot in Buffalo. Now, this is the part of the rally where I asked all my brothers and sisters if Black Lives Matter make some noise. Okay, and then this is the part where I have to kind of juxtapose that with a fact. If Black Lives Matter, then there really should be no debate about what we do with guns in this country. I'm going to give you a fact. This is not my opinion. This is the fact that you can go look up on Beyonce's internet. In the span of 73 years, 4,800 black people were lynched. 73 years, 4,800 black people were lynched. In the span of 19 years, 93,000 black people were killed due to gun violence. So, if black lives actually matter, then you should be the first and foremost people at the forefront asking for demand about gun laws. I'm gonna offer up another opinion. You can do what you want with it. It's just my black ass opinion. Well, a lot of us have this thing, well, what about the good guys with guns? What about the good guys, the heroes with guns? Well, when it was a time for the good guys with guns to show up in Uvalde, they stayed silent. Let me remind you that it was a brown mother that ran past the good guys and wrote, and then if we're talking about the good guys with guns, let's keep in mind that the good guys with guns seem to do an awful lot of patrolling and killing with those guns on black and brown unarmed bodies. So let's not forget that gun violence is a racial justice issue. At some point, we have to stop showing up based on the issues and start showing up for one another. I can also argue that gun protection laws don't really go for women. Because I'm reminded about a woman that was down in Florida that was trying to shoot her attacker in a stand your ground state. She went to jail. So who does gun protection laws really abide by? Who are they actually for? I'm going to give you some more facts that you can go look up on your own internet. You don't have to believe me. There are only 3 countries in the world that have constitutional gun rights. Mexico, Honduras, and America. 3 countries. And guess what? All 3 of these countries are in the top 10 countries that have the most gun violence and causes of gun death. There are many more countries, including Canada, Sweden, I believe, that they have bans on guns. This notion that the people need to arm themselves against the government is a crazy American narrative. It's not true. And I make that argument, and I'm saying that nobody needs guns. And I know that's hard to think in such a violent American context, but if we go up north just a little bit and cross that border, there are people that do not have guns. Your Second Amendment right, it's not real. And for the people that say, well, what about the cops when they come against the crazy guys with guns? There are cops in the world outside the American context that do not have guns. At some point, America's going to have to look at our neighbors that are standing right beside us and really decide what's more important. This outdated Constitution that doesn't even apply to everybody. The Constitution doesn't really include black or brown folks. It doesn't include people that are incarcerated. It barely includes women. So why are we still upholding such a Constitution that doesn't speak for all? This is why I get so angry. Not with just the lawmakers. These lawmakers are only as powerful as we allow them to be. It's we the people. At some point, we the people are going to decide, really, like this chant we've been saying, enough is really enough. And I can argue that it's probably not. 93% of this crowd is going to go back home, you're going to turn on Netflix or Hulu or whatever, and you're done with it.
No, sir. No, sir. No.
Even right now, there are people over here arguing with the 2 idiots that came out. You see, I'm like, we allow so many things to like distract us from what's really important. A couple more things and then I'm going home because I'm hot.
You might have stand in the sun. It's okay.
I'm not telling you who to vote for in November, but I will make a case against the guy that we have in office right now. He has shown us time and time again that he doesn't listen to everyday Texans. He has shown us time and time again that he has his own priorities that are not aligned with what the current wave of Texans are asking. He also showed us that after this massacre, making money at a fundraiser was more important than attending and being there for the families of the people in Uvalde. Again, I'm not telling you who to vote for, but Greg Abbott has got to go. Something has got to get, like this country, like there's something strange going on across the world. And it's about time that we put aside our differences. Like, somebody has to do the emotional labor to like actually make a claim for like this united country that we're talking about. Like, we can't keep just preaching to the choir. That's not getting us anywhere. At some point, we have to understand that even that racist uncle or that misogynistic friend, whatever, like, maybe they're not lost and we have to do the work, and that sucks. But as a black person, I know people died doing that work for me. And a lot of us, white, black, brown, or whatever, we like to use Malcolm X to say by any means necessary. But when it's time for you to talk to people on the other side of the aisle, we shell up. When it's time for you to vote, even though voting is not going to save us, it's a tool to get us to where we need to go. You say that's not going to work. So if we're talking really by any means, how crazy, how far are we willing to go to make sure our lives actually mean something?
All the way. To the end of the earth.
That's not for you to answer, that's for you to show me. Not even show me, show yourself. Couple more things that I'm going home, and I thank you for standing in the sun with me. And you know why this is important? This means right now in this moment we're deciding to struggle together. That's what we have to do. That means if you're not black, if you're not brown, if I'm not white, if I'm not in the LGBTQIA plus community, I don't have to be to empathize and understand. I'm going to be willing to stand with you because I see you, I love you, and the thing is, the reason we have to start listening to black and brown communities, we have been talking about gun violence for a very long time. This is a result, if I can for a second, my white brothers and sisters, this is a result of you choosing not to listen to us. Gun violence has been prevalent in black and brown communities since the 80s and 70s and 60s. Violence prevention has been an answer for years, but now we're just now uplifting. There's been black and brown queer folks really doing that work for years. Just like the black women that are dying at the doctor because their doctor's choosing not to listen to them, white America, at some point you're going to have to listen to black and brown voices. We've been going through this. Not trying to sound divisive. Sandy Hook tragedy, just like any Columbine tragedy, just like anything else. This happens every day in black and brown communities. We've been saying we have to do something. Something has to give. I love seeing this, man, but at some point, like, we're actually going to have to come to a rally. We're going to have to come to a march and decide collectively, you know what, I'm ready to give something a little bit more. I would probably, like the fact that a lot of you, which students are going to allow your child to go back to school in August after nothing happens is crazy to me. Like, at some point, we're going to have to get radical, and not radical in the sense of guns and burning up shit, radical in the sense of, like, we're going to have to, like, get creative in how we deploy our power as people.
That's right. That's right.
Here's an idea, and I don't have kids. I'm not saying this has to be the thing. How about we, the community, create space for people with kids to not have their kids go back to school until something actually happens? Because the problem is, the moment you send your child on a bus to go back to that school, that shows you're complacent with the fact nothing happened to change the things we said we want to change. Just like I argue with all my socialist friends. They say they want socialism. They can't stand capitalism. Monday at 8 o'clock, they jump up early to go to work. If we, the working class, collectively decided that we're not working until we get a living wage, things will change. But the problem is we don't trust each other enough as a community to struggle with one another to get the change we need. That's why we put all the responsibility on these people we vote into office. And then we get disappointed when they don't yield the results that we're asking for. Because they know you're not really going to vote them out. They know they don't have to come to your neighborhood to talk to you. Because come August and September, you're done. You're on to the next issue. Because black lives don't actually matter. We really don't care about those kids in Uvalde. We didn't care about those black folks in Buffalo.
But we do.
So at some point, something is going to have to give. We're going to have to get serious about organizing into not demanding change, taking change. And language is so important. I love everything that everybody said, but language is important. These lives in Broad wasn't lost. These lives in Buffalo were not lost. They were taken by psychos. You losing your keys and somebody taking your keys are two completely different contexts. These kids were robbed of the opportunity to have quinceañeras. They were robbed of the opportunity to go to dances and go to proms. That was not lost, that was taken. That was taken from them because we're not taking the steps needed to bring about true change. So we can whine and complain to these legislators all day, but it's us that is allowing them to sit in these seats of power. So it's blood on their hands, but it's absolutely blood on ours too. It is blood on our beds that we sleep in as these tragedies continue to happen. It's blood on the hands of you that criticize every organizer and every group because they're not doing the thing that you're too afraid to do. The one thing we know we can do if we do it right is vote people out. And some of you are so self-righteous that you sit and say that's not the answer. Well, tell me what it is. Vote them out! Before we vote them out, we got to register people to vote. I'll say this and then I'm done. I know y'all tired of me. I want you to understand, I'm saying you do have to vote. I'm also letting you know that we the people, my brothers, my sisters, my aunties, my grandpas, my grandmas, voting is not gonna save this country.
That's right.
It's a step to get us to where we need to go. This country is so convoluted and so jacked up, it's gonna take some deep soul searching to get us to where we need to go. Ain't no policy, no legislation, no politician do that for us. It's a step in order to get us where we need to go. We still have to have some conversations around slavery and reparations in this country. We still need to have some conversation around the fact that women still don't get paid equally for doing the same job, if not better than men. We need to talk about how you got a Black Lives Matter sign in the yard of the house that gentrified the east side. Policy can't do that for us. We're going to have to do some soul searching to get to that more perfect union that they so eloquently wrote about. We're going to have to start thinking outside of the box that they have given us. Because we the people does not include all people. I've been having thoughts about maybe we need to rewrite the Constitution. But in order to do that, some of you, my white brothers, mainly my white brothers and white people in general, you're going to have to give up some of that power and that privilege. Because even if you don't use it, you benefit from it. And that's okay, because as a man, even though I'm a black man, as a man, I benefit from privilege that some of my lady counterparts and my queer counterparts can't benefit from. Equity is the word of the day, absolutely. We have to actually practice it. I know I said some things and you scratching your head and you want to ask me some questions. Do not come talk to me because I don't have the answers. I just know that we have to be serious about this. This is a moment actually to not even change the Texas blue. Yes, that's important. We need to change Texas righteous. Let's have some righteous people that actually give a shit about us in this building. Today should be a record turnout for the women league to vote. They should register everybody here to vote.
That's right.
Your Starbucks coffee, your child's soccer game, that can wait. We are at war. Black and brown people and queer people and women have been at war for their lives.
Yeah.
Yes.
And now the time is here, it is present if we really want to do something. The choice is yours. So what are we going to do?
That's a lot of hands up. Look around. That's not fair for us to have to come here and protest this and rally against this. We deserve better. For closing, we have 3 steps of action every person here is going to take. Text 954-954 to March for Our Lives to stay locally involved. They give you updates on phone banks, on...
Text NEXT to 954-954. NEXT.
Get locally involved with gun violence prevention organizations such as CJAF, Austin Justice Coalition, Texas Gun Sense, and many more. Moms Demand Action, Every Town. Register to vote and tell a loved one to. And call Abbott's office to demand a special session on gun violence prevention measures. We want to thank everyone for joining us. Please pick up your trash. Put it in the trash bags and the trash cans. There's a couple around the back. Exit safely, be kind to one another, and register to vote.
And remember, today is the start of a movement. This is not just a moment.
Thank you.
Amanda, so what are you thinking?
We're good.
Oh, okay. No interviews or anything?
No, we've got the Uvalde family.
Okay.
No, the one that you reported.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they spoke. I really think that's going to be my main story about that part. And then whatever you got in the beginning, suffering in the sun.